necessarily taken into account that they have a 4-year-old that feels, or an 8-year-old feels kidnapped.
Yeah. Sarah, are you on the Sarah?
And there's no proof of what is allowed under Title IV. There's only 4 circumstances that are satisfy emergency removal, and they involve like acts of felonious, like attempted murder and felonious rape and stuff. Like, there has to be excessive violence within the household to justify under federal guidelines the removal, emergency removal of a child.
She has documentation that a DHS worker in Oklahoma made a welfare check and there were no concerns.
Right. So why? Okay, here's the question. You're saying that it's a state of X, which we haven't named yet, that has actually taken these acts, allowing the sheriff to operate as an attorney without a license to practice law and bring a cause of action in the name of a child under a habeas. So let me get this straight, because this is what I'm understanding. The state of California can approach a random sheriff in any state of the union, and the sheriff will, on his own personal cognizance, bring an act on behalf of a child and remove him from the mother without any proof of evidence, and move the state that he's the sheriff of to convey the child outside of federal jurisdiction. Am I understanding this right? But if I have proof, if you or I, as a parent, bring proof to the courts, this same sheriff, that this child was unlawfully conveyed by acts of the prosecuting attorney, that he won't even do anything. And maybe it's because he took his direction, if I understand correctly. This sheriff acted because you said that you talked to an agent of that county, of the offending county, whose sheriff is so moral that he has to bring a cause of action on behalf of another state and ignore the righteousness of his own regional citizens and neighbors. So he actually brought a cause of action on behalf of another state against one of his own members of his own society,
his own community,
he knew nothing about.
Yeah, and when I called him for comment,
that sounds like a tool to me. That sounds like an instrument of another offender, of another master. Because you told me that someone said, well, this is what we do all the time. We bring causes of action as not attorneys, as a sheriff for this, all the time at the direction of the county prosecutor.
Well, this wasn't, in this case, it was the DA from California, but I think I have.
So they're even listening to a DA from California instead of their own citizenry.
Yeah.
So the sheriff apparently now is just an instrument of a foreign state attorney, right?
Yes.
So the sheriff of this county, and this is where this is the point. This is a very important point.
Well, I don't, he was very short with me, and I don't want to quote him verbatim. I do want to quote him verbatim. He said, "Do not call me back unless you have a criminal action against me, and do not call anybody in my office."
Against me?
Yeah, I was, and I was very nice.
Unless you're going to charge me with a criminal act, don't call me.
Yeah, he said, I was very nice.
I might help you do that, just because I didn't understand that was the point.
Well, it sounded kind of like, I was like, sir, I'm just trying to figure out what occurred.
Head of baby trafficking in whatever state
No, I was just trying to find out.
Me unless you're going to call me a criminal?
Well, I could have misunderstood mom's perspective and what she was saying. So I was trying to call the sheriff that was in the courthouse at the time of the seizure to find out what was going on. And he was the one that relayed to me, well, I'm the one that filed the seizure of the child on behalf of the DA.
Whoever you were talking to in the sheriff's office.
No, he is the sheriff at the...
He was in the hearing, said that he was the one who filed the cause of action.
Yes.
So is he an attorney now? So is he operating under the common law? Because he's not an attorney. I operate under the common law all the time. They tried to put me in jail with this stuff.
Well,
put me in prison, So this sheriff, he can pretend that he's operating the common law. I thought that didn't exist. He's not an attorney. What's he operating under?
The concerns are that
No, that's an important question. He's not an attorney.
What I want to ask you about, I want to introduce Mom to the show. I think I have her on the line.
That's
Are you on the line?
I want to hear what happened with her. I'm going to defer and put on.
But I also want to talk about the Rucker-Feldman doctrine, because this is important.
Right. Let's talk to the mom. Let's bring Mom on first. Okay. And this is the first time I've met her, so I'm excited to hear from her. I'm going to go on mute. Okay.
Okay. Welcome to the show. You want to explain to us what occurred this morning? I know that you called me late last night, but you called me early this morning. And you want to start from there?
Well, it happened so fast. I was actually on my way to a job interview, and I was coming out of 7-Eleven, and all of a sudden, it was like these people with badges. There was like 4 or 5 of them with badges were like circling us, and then they handed me something saying, "You have to come down to the courthouse, and your daughter has to come with us." And, you know, I had been told that this would happen, but I was just like, really? You know, because I was like, you know, I am trying to protect my child, you know, and she has been elected, and you know, I you know, that actually one of the policemen, when we got down to the courthouse, said, "Oh, well, this isn't the proper jurisdiction, so that's probably just what's going to happen. They'll say this isn't the proper jurisdiction, and, you know, we'll probably have to just, you know."
So they knew. Lotus.
To me and gave me hope. And then
I hear that they issued an emergency, like, bill of attainder on her and said, "Go seize the child and woman." They didn't even find her at her house. Like, they put on APB, said find her.
They even said this isn't the proper jurisdiction. So they knew.
Who said that? The actual, were they police or sheriffs did the seizure?
That is the proper jurisdiction. And I said, California is a proper jurisdiction. I said, this is not the jurisdiction. And then the judge just kind of acted like he was a little confused. And then he looked at, you know, the DA, and she said a whole bunch of stuff about, you know, we've come to get the child because of this and that or whatever. And I'm just like, what? You know? And
okay, well, you're the mother
I didn't understand anything she was saying, because she just was pissing me off so bad at the time. I was just like, really? You know?
So
and then
you went down. They took you down to the courthouse.
They escorted her. Did they not escort her?
A police escort.
Escorted her in their car, and I followed them to the courthouse. So there was
whoa. They put your child in their car and made you follow?
Yes.
Yeah, I went down to the courthouse.
My God. Oh, my God.
And they were trying to act like
That's
it would be
not threat arresting coercion.
Like,
oh, my God.
This isn't the proper jurisdiction.
Okay,
so
wait, Lisa, slow down.
Yeah, slow down. You have a, wow, that's a big deal. What they basically did to you is an act of piracy. And it's against international law, what they did.
Yes.
And I know that you know that, but I need you to slow down so that the listeners can understand what happened. Two attorneys, let me just summarize where we are so far. Attorneys from 2 different states got together who are being paid under federal grant to do what they're doing. So this is a federal grant jurisdictional issue. And 2 attorneys between states got together and colluded to send out an all-points bulletin where they take you off the road in your daily pursuit, steal your child, hold it in their possession, put it in their possession, and force you to follow them to a judge.
Right.
Okay, I think that everyone who's listening to this this interview right now should take that in its full measure. They literally took the child of this woman into their custody under threat of guns en masse and put the child in their custody and used it as an instrument to lure the mother and to force the mother to follow them and to surrender them to a court of, quote, law, where they then took the child. Am I correct in this, ma'am?
Yes, that's what they did.
Yeah. So they basically used your child as bait to get you to attend a hearing in a court, where they then took your child away from you at the objections of both you and an 8-year-old girl?
Yes.
Okay.
And Sara was begging. Please don't take me from my mom.
She was crying. She said, I'm not going. I am not going with you. And she was crying. She said, I don't want to go.
Okay. And right there,
she had tears running down her face.
That's where we're at here. And I want to hear more about the story, is that they are completely acting as though this child has no rights. And I want to tell you that if you probably look at the juvenile administrative procedures in most states, because they have it in Ohio, it says literally, at the request of the prosecuting attorney, the administrator may waive the rights of the child. So they collude to treat the child as a thing. And in this case, you have attorneys colluding across state lines to treat the child as a thing with no rights. And I think that everyone really needs to understand that that is just child trafficking. They didn't even hear the presentments of the mother.
No, and Lisa, you tried to present your documentation that we prepared to the judge, and what happened?
Well, I didn't have time to go down and get my documentation. My documentation was inside the house, and I didn't have the one that I had tried to file in court in Oklahoma. So when I tried to file something in Oklahoma, they're like, no, we're not taking it. But when they file something in Oklahoma, Oklahoma's allowed to rule on that.
So you weren't given due process. Now, when you went before the judge, did the judge ask you, did you tell the judge about the Rucker-Feldman doctrine? Did you tell the judge that you had documentation?
Well, there's actually a greater issue here, too. There's actually an issue in Roman civil law that a right that is owed to
didn't even allow me to talk. I mean, he just looked at me with a blank look on his face, like, well, in other words, like, I should know what's happening, and blah, 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 and, this is the district attorney, and,
did you ask for representation when you got there? Lisa, did you ask for representation? Because did you tell the judge that you had a hearing impairment?
Oh, yes, I did. And what he did is he said, come up here to me. So I had to stand in front of him, right in front of him, and stare at this DA that was standing here giving him a line of BS, and I don't know what she told him or anybody. I don't know what she told them, because I know there was a point where the judge was gone and the DA was gone, and they could have had a little 10-minute ex parte meeting, while we're sitting here waiting.
That's not unusual for them to have little private bar union hearings when they get caught.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening, because there was like 20 minutes that we sat there.
That's where they negotiate their little bar union settlement. But people are starting to get wise to this. I mean, this is an agreement.
I got to go get this paper, or I got to go do this, I got to go do that. And she kept leaving and saying, I got to go do this, I got to go do that. And I'm just what the hell are y'all doing? She kept leaving and coming back.
This is what I would tell you spiritually, is that adversity brings opportunity. And I think I'm hopeful that with Amelia's acts today, that your daughter will be conveyed into federal custody as a matter of protecting the public trust, because what we're going for here is this: every act that has happened against your daughter and you is backed by the full faith and credit of the American people by Title 28, 1738, Big A, is a totally separate act from Title 28, 1738. It's a completely separate act that specifically states that every action taken in the conveyance of custody of a child is backed by the full faith and credit of the American people. And that means that however the courts that are adjudicating the probating and conveyance of custody of children